Hello and welcome to the Move Well, Live Well podcast.
We are your hosts, Antonio Capasso and Dave Fell. The aim of this podcast is to motivate, inspire, and educate the masses, giving practical tips and golden nuggets on how to get moving and live a healthy and fulfilled life.
This podcast is for anybody who's wanting to exercise but struggles to get started or to make it stick. It's for anybody who's chasing goals but never seems to feel satisfied, or simply anyone who wants to live a healthier and happier life.
As a licensed sport and exercise psychologist, I use my knowledge of human behaviour and psychological theory to help both everyday people and Olympic level athletes achieve their performance and lifestyle goals.
I'm an online coach and I've built a platform through providing healthy and budget recipes and practical exercise tips to as many people as I can. I'm not the biggest, leanest, strongest or fittest coach, but I do pride myself in being the most well balanced. We want you to take away so many golden nuggets from this podcast that you'll have to eat them with milk. Have you ever done a run and you've looked down at your watch and instantly you felt bad about it, or you felt regret or anything like that? Or even worse, you felt so good during that run, but then you checked the time and then you just instantly felt disappointed. Tony, has this ever happened to you?
Dave, 100%. I definitely caught myself being guilty of this, and I think that's why today we're unpacking why that happens and how the idea of time has started to control our, or maybe can start to control our relationship with movement, and actually start taking away from those feelings of self-worth and the whole reason why you got into movement in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And in today's social media based culture, everything's, comparing how your performance is to other people. What's the time is a huge one. One of the first questions that anybody will ask you whenever you've done a marathon, it's like, okay, what time did you get? It's not, how did you feel? How did you find it? Did you enjoy it? It's always, what time did you get? So in today's episode, we're going to discuss a lot about that, how we can actually come away from that, really spike our interest and enjoyment back into exercise, and really push forward and away from this comparison culture which we see in today's society.
Yeah, amazing. And it was a topic that was originally brought to me by someone that heard that we were doing this podcast, that they were really intrigued by it, and then they were like, are you guys going to talk about this at all, because it's something that they'd noticed and recognized and been getting really fed up with. And I know it's actually been a big movement in social media. Even in the last week had seen like someone posting a reel about it, so I think it's really topical and something we're so passionate about that we've got a nice little reveal at the end of the episode, just to sort of double down on how much we care, and it will hopefully launch us into what will be a new season off the back of this, right?
Absolutely. We've got some very exciting plans to come in 2026. Can't wait to share them with you all. And stay tuned, because it's going to be a great start to the year.
Yeah. Awesome. So as we said, today's topic is going to be all about that awful, annoying question that everyone's heard, which is, what's the time? And the idea behind this is, we're going to talk about ego, comparison, online pressure, going to talk about identity and how it all shapes how we judge success, and actually how it changes our perception of what success actually is. So the first question we must ask ourselves is, where does this obsession with numbers come from?
Yeah, and I guess as humans, we have that obsession with numbers. I mean, humans just like to be in control, right? We like to control our circumstances. We like to control and like to feel that we are making progress towards certain things. And often we find that if we're not kind of progressing in terms of numbers, it feels like we're stalling a little bit. Well, actually, if we break it down, getting back to the values piece, which I know we talk to death a lot on this podcast, but again, it's just so important. And it's kind of like, okay, how do we get back to the roots of that? And instead of, trying to control every single aspect of our life and tying our values to what time we got on this, it's like the old gym bro saying of like, when you say you're starting lifting, everybody's like, oh, what's your bench? And people will tie your values to that number, when actually what we want to talk about today is coming away from that. And I don't know, do you have any psychological insight about why we want to feel, as I say, that control, and why we want to all put it into numbers?
Yeah, it's when we actually break it down, it's so obvious, but when it's happening, it's so hard to see it. Even when you know it's happening, it's so hard to just reset yourself. And of course, I'm going to talk about the chimp paradox to help us work through this model and the whole reason behind that, and why it's been so well used, and why Dr. Steve Peters, who created it, has been so successful with this model. It's because it's just so simplistic And then when we actually start looking at it, we understand the chimp, the computer, the human. It's so easy for us to see what's going on. But the first point is psychologically, it's a really hard external measure to overcome, because what it is it's tangible. We like having something tangible to look at. It's harder to know, it's harder to show someone from the outside that you've had success internally when they don't know what's going on inside you. They might not know your whole story arc, etc. So what often happens is we tie ourselves to getting a time so that we can prove to people like who we are from the outside looking in. Okay, so the idea of getting, let's say you want to go for a sub 50-minute 10K. Okay, really impressive time. Definitely nothing to be sniffed at. And if you ever get that, hats off to you.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, incredible effort. But what happens is, right, so we start working towards this, and we start training, and suddenly we will get like a good run and a good time, and it feels good for us internally, because we think, oh wow, like I hit this run, I get not only are you getting the runner's high, but on top of that, you're getting this feeling of self-mastery, which happens because you've hit a goal. So then internally, you're getting even more of these, desired happy hormones, as we call them. So you're getting your dopamine, you're getting your serotonin, you're getting these endorphins. But then on top of that, well, then you add on the fact that because it's so easy for Dave to turn around and realize I've hit a goal because he can see it physically, he then turns around and says, Antonio, wow, that was so impressive. What a great run, man. Like, you must be so proud of yourself. I'm so proud of you. That feels really good. We want to chase that again. And then suddenly this time, this thing that is just a figure, it's just a number, it's suddenly like, well, actually, I need to beat this again so I can get that feeling again. So very quickly, we can see how suddenly, because we're trying to chase this feeling, we're trying to chase this emotion, when we think about the chimp, one of the base drivers of the chimp is to have gratification and want that instant gratification. Well, we know that if you go for a run, do a fast run, you're going to get gratification, which is literally a need, a desire of ours. And it feeds into the ego, which we'll talk about later on. So before I keep rambling, we can already start seeing what's happening, right, Dave?
Yeah, and I guess it's very much ingrained in our society as a whole, right? Because ever since a young age, when we go to school, we like things to be quantifiable, and everything from, even your SATs, which is in primary school, which is insane. It's like, at the time, it feels like a huge amount of pressure to then be going into like what groups you're going to be in secondary school. And then obviously you got your GCSEs and your A levels. So it's no surprise really, because we are ingrained as a society. It's like, if you work hard and if you do this, then you will achieve X grade, and that will open X, Y, and Z opportunities. So it's the same thing with running and with the gym, and in any sense of the numbers, it's, the harder you work, this is what will get a number. But as we know, as well as grades, is just because you've got X amount of grade, that doesn't show what other skills that you have, or it doesn't determine how successful in your life you are going to be. But yeah, as I say, for some reason, and as I say, it's because it's ingrained in our society, everything has to be a number. And even just thinking about back to COVID, when they tried to, I guess, represent the severity of it, everything was given to us in numbers, how many cases, how many deaths, all of this. And I guess it's a way that humans can display things in a very quantifiable way.
Yeah, it's also a really easy way for us to justify something. So someone might turn around to you and say, oh my God, you're running 3 times a week. Why on earth are you doing that? And you can turn around and say, oh yeah, well, because I've just knocked 5 minutes off my time. Suddenly they're like, oh, that's really impressive. But what you can't do is you can't really easily show someone how you feel before a run, how you feel after it, how you physically feel in your own body, how you feel about yourself because you're going out and you're doing a hard task again and again and again. We can't show people that. Yes, we might be able to show them it in terms of like, and this again, where we start relating things to like numbers on the scale, right? We can't show people how we're feeling inside our bodies. We can't show them what it's doing in terms of our confidence. They might be able to see it in the odd occasion, but and week in, week out, they can't see it. But if you turn around to someone and say, oh yeah, well, I just knocked 5 minutes off my PB, suddenly they pay attention because it's something that they can really easily understand. So again, it ties back into that stage of like, it's just really relatable way for you to be able to show someone and prove to someone and justify what you're doing and justify the work that you're putting in. which just starts doubling down on this idea that, oh, I need to start getting this time, otherwise people are going to think that I'm just wasting my time.
I think that's a great point, and something from there is like when people check your Strava, it doesn't display anything about the enjoyment factor, where you went, what you saw, how you found it, what were you thinking at the time. All it is, on all people see, is distance, time. And that's what people are going to ask you. But there's so many more important factors outside of that we need to start going back to, rather than just being like, and again, if you ask someone, oh, you've been for a run today, everyone's like, yeah, I did a 10K or however many it is. But what does that tell us? Not a lot, just the distance, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's actually, sometimes it's those 4Ks where you just really don't want to go and do it. You are really swamped in the day and you manage to just nip out and do a 15-minute run or a 20-minute run. And it might not seem a lot in terms of like long-term progress and goals, but actually the fact that you just managed to squeeze it in there is so much more impressive than your Sunday, let's say 15K that you ran when you had all the time in the world. You actually had like a really good night's sleep. You fueled yourself before it. That was the only thing you had on that day. You came back, you had a nap and you could relax. Like obviously still super impressive that you can run 15K, but the person that's having to squeeze it into their day because they said that running and fitness is a priority to them, but they've only done 4K and they're not even done it at an impressive pace because they were just so fatigued from work and fatigued from seeing friends and balancing family, etc. That's way more impressive, right?
Exactly. And so let's talk then how this displays, I guess, in this comparison culture that we're seeing. And I know that I definitely have been out for a run, particularly in summer, it tops off, having an absolute great time. As we've mentioned on previous podcasts, it's a fantastic way to just get outside, get into nature, manage your mental health. And then all of a sudden I've got to the end of the run, I've looked at my time and I'm thinking, oh, God. And it kind of taints it a little bit because I know that it's going to go out onto a public forum and people are going to see that. And it's like, how did we get here where everything was so lovely? Like out, really enjoying myself, getting a tan whilst doing it as well. Can't beat it. And then you come back and you're like, I've seen the time and instantly I'm feeling like I should have done better. How did we end up here?
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to, again, comparison. It comes down to the complete animalistic, very ego-driven instincts that we have that are ingrained in that limbic system that, turn around to us and say, I'm the big silverback gorilla beating my chest in the forest, and I want to look the most impressive. So it literally, that's how it goes back. We go back to our very base levels of identifying, and comparing yourself to another animal in the kingdom without sounding so extreme, right? But we know, right, in our logical, when we're sat here, and obviously we're sat in front of the camera, but we're nice and comfy in these chairs. Shout out to the studio for the comfy chairs. But we're nice and comfy in our chairs, or you're, maybe sitting on the tube, just listening on your way to work, or you're about to head to the gym, but you're not in that space. You've not just done the run, so you're not now fatigued, or you're not now looking at it and trying to judge and compare, and you're trying to get these bits of gratification. When we look at it from this side, when we have that logical, human, rational part of our brain, it seems silly. But when unchecked, very quickly the chimp can start taking over. But additionally, the computer and what we're feeding it starts taking over. Okay, because the power of social media is kind of scary. It's literally designed to be addictive. So we want to post because we want to get the likes. We want to share our story, and we're all guilty of it. We want to share our story. We want people to comment and tell us how great it was, etc. We want the Strava kudos, right? I mean, my Strava is actually currently on private because I don't get it. Well, I do get it, but I think there's no point in just posting stuff for kudos. But it gets very addictive. So now what we're doing is, I went for that run and I got this like, so then it changes our perspective. We're no longer just going out for the run for ourselves. We're going out for the run because we want to get likes from other people. And then suddenly we start comparing, well, actually, when this person went out on their run, that was so much more impressive than mine. So if I post mine and I start shouting about mine, are people actually going to really care? Or are they just going to start looking at this person's time and say, but his was so much better. Why should I support you and care about you, right? So we suddenly start thinking that all these metrics are going to impact what views we get and how much retention we get and how much interaction we're getting from our followers, and even forgetting that most of our followers and the ones we care about are just our friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have definitely done this, and I'd be interested to see if you have as well. Been on a run and I'm literally pushing myself, not even necessarily for a PB, just to keep up a certain pace. And I am literally making myself hurt more. My lungs are burning, my legs are hurting, just so I can get a better time for Strava. So if you listening out there and think, yeah, I've done that before, well, just know that you're not alone, first and foremost. I've definitely pushed myself way more than I needed to, just to impress a bunch of people on my Strava that probably don't even really care about me. And it's pretty wild that we've got here. But I mean, we're literally doing something that's removing the enjoyment out of what we're trying to do to impress people.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just it. When you first engaged in this hobby, you did it for that really, so hopefully for that really solid why that was in there to begin with, right? And that's where that deep internal motivation, that most powerful motivation, will come from. Then what might happen is you start mixing with a social circle that also runs, or you might start just telling people about your runs. Suddenly people are, you're comparing yourself to others, or people are, they've replied and commented and said, wow, that was so good. And before you realize it, very quickly, that original why is slowly getting changed, because the computer in our brain is going, oh, well, actually, when I got this time, I then got this piece of positive reinforcement. Therefore, I want to chase and do that again. So I keep getting that positive reinforcement. And so quickly, our belief around why we're going for a run starts changing. It transitions from, I'm doing this because I want to get better for myself, or I just want to see what I'm made of, to, well, I need to go out and I don't want to drop this pace because I want to impress others, or because I want to get respect and admiration from others. And of course, we're not saying don't do anything and hope for like the admiration of others. And yes, it can be motivating, but it's working out, when does that start tipping? And when does the balance of your real reason behind it, your real why, start to get overshadowed by some of these more surface levels, some of this more pressurizing ideologies, and some of this more pressurizing beliefs around why you're now pushing towards this goal?
I think that's a great insight. And basically what you're saying is that, we start for X reason, and then we start to get better. And as we get better, we get more external validation, which then drives us to think, okay, I'm doing better, so therefore I want to keep getting better so I can get more and more external validation. And it's kind of like, I guess, in a way, a little bit of a vicious cycle, and particularly if it ever gets to a point where it pushes you too far.
Exactly. And that's when you start seeing stuff like burnout come in, because someone's like, well, if I don't do this run, or they start to pick up a niggle. And they're like, yeah, but I need to make sure I'm still running. Otherwise, I'm not going to hit my goal for the upcoming, let's say, high rocks that's coming up. So then they keep pushing and they keep training. Then they get more injured. And it's because what's happened here is you've started tying your identity and your self-worth to the performance, which, as we've said here, we can see there's so many different factors that can make this happen. But what that does, it really narrows our vision. There's a really good exercise that I do with clients, which is I'll turn around and I'll say, okay, Dave, in the last year, give me your best, think of your best run and how it made you feel. And we'll say Barcelona probably, right? I'll say, okay, what was the time? So they write down the time, and I'll say, okay, what emotions did you feel about yourself after that run? And I'm guessing you'd say probably pride, probably like happiness, fulfillment, maybe a little bit. And I say, okay, that we're going to put that there. Then I'll say, what was the worst run you did? And just through knowing Dave, maybe it was London.
London, yeah.
Right, okay.
2 marathons, very close together, 2 different experiences for sure.
And then I'll say, okay, what was the time on that one? And then what emotions showed up there?
Hurt, a lot of hurt, pain, disappointment, frustration. And I guess a little bit of embarrassment, particularly, and I think because it was London, and obviously more of my audience is based in London, more of the people that I know was there, so I had a real niggling feeling just to just keep going, even though it's so painful. just to keep pushing through, so you don't embarrass yourself, basically.
So we've got frustration, pain, embarrassment, bit of hurt, probably both physically and mentally.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll say what was the most recent, and we'll go for Berlin. Again, we'll put down the time there. It's annoying because you obviously changed your perception of time and got into a really healthy headspace. It doesn't need my services as much. But I'll then turn around and say, okay, there's the time. What emotions showed up again? So for you, probably enjoyment was a big part of that.
Massively. Yeah. Just, again, removing myself from that number and just taking myself out of it, leaving the chimp at home, and just being at peace, I guess. Yeah,
cool. Yeah, peace, enjoyment. And obviously it's annoying because normally at that point the client would turn around and say, oh, well, this emotion still turned up with sort of frustration, a bit of anger, a little bit of sometimes emptiness, because they might hit a goal and realize that it's still not changed this feeling they're trying to chase. And I'll turn around and I'll say, okay, so in this circle is a very rough summary of your running journey over the last year. Okay. And I'll say, it's fair to say that time had a big impact on then how you felt and perceived yourself. And they'll say, normally, yeah.
I mean, for years and years and years, that's how I felt.
Okay. Then what we do is we look at that circle and I'll turn around and say, okay, well, what happens if we just do this? And I'll zoom out. And what we're left with is one small circle in the middle that says Dave. And then we have a much bigger circle around the outside that could probably fit at least another 8 of those circles that say Dave. And that big circle now says Dave fell. And I say, what does that big circle represent? What do you feel like it represents?
In terms of what?
So there's a small circle in the middle of all your times
and
your emotions, your perception of self in that circle. And it's titled Dave. But then when we zoom out, we realize there's a much bigger circle that's called Dave fell.
Okay, so that's everything in terms of the values, why I got started in the first place, what my goals, or not even what my goals were from a time perspective, but more just was I doing it to, for example, in Berlin, go and explore a city and actually have a good time as part of the overall trip, rather than just everything is based around this marathon. So yeah, I guess it's everything to do with the enjoyment, to train, to prove myself that I can do hard things and actually be determined with my training, which obviously is one part about the training, but another part just about, self-resilience and pushing through stuff.
Yeah. So essentially you have it in a nutshell there, and probably it's because you've already done so much good work on it that,
through you,
that you're realizing it. But it's that idea of, that circle in the middle is literally just Dave, the marathon runner, right? But for some reason, they've forgotten about everything else that makes up Dave. So if you're going for, let's say, a high rocks time, just because you all talk about running. So if you're going for a high rocks time and you find yourself feeling really pressurized and thinking, oh my God, I must hit this time. I've got to do this. Otherwise it's going to be embarrassing. I'm going to be disappointed. I'm going to let myself down. I would have failed. It's well, actually, when we zoom all the way out, this is just one bit that makes up you. And you obviously know this so well, that those marathons were just one thing that made up Dave. And you post about it really nice. And you said there's actually, friends and friends come under one circle, family comes under another circle. You've then got other passions. So, your actual work is another passion of yours. You then have, let's say, the fitness community is another passion. And if we keep working through, as we talk about music, when we went to go and see Oasis, unbelievable.
Go ahead.
We went to go and see, it might be that you really enjoy reading. There could be other things I don't know about you. These are all the other areas that make up Dave, not just this one circle.
So you're saying that some people can often get caught in this, they're very zoomed in and focused on this one thing because it's what they've been living and breathing for a while. And that's why they tie so much of it to their ego, to their identity. And often what do you find is people, either they feel like they're progressing or they feel like they're failing. Is that something that you would see quite commonly?
100%. So that's that way of, well, unless I keep hitting a time, unless I keep improving, I am now failing, because they've tied their whole identity to this time, or they've tied their whole identity to outcome rather than progress, right? Because they've forgotten about the values behind why they're doing it. They're now thinking that the only thing that makes up me, the only thing that ties in my worth is how good I am. And my other anecdote that I always say to people, and I promise you it's not to blow my own trumpet, but when I got back into running, and that's I think properly in May 2024, I within about 2 months managed to hit an 18-minute 5K, and it was really good, felt great for me. But I'm someone that has played competitive sport my whole life. When I was younger, I was on the county cross country team, and I went to nationals, so I was really in good
Man can run.
Man could run, right? I then went to uni, was still really engaged in fitness, stopped running as much, but was so engaged in fitness that didn't really leave me, was always gymming. So I was always at quite a good level in terms of my base fitness. So then when I got back into running, well, it wasn't like I was starting from scratch again. So actually I ran 2 days a week for 2 months, and very quickly was able to get back up to nowhere near perhaps what I was in there when I was running for county and running nationals at cross country, but I could get very quickly down to a sub 20-minute 5K. It's so unfair for me to compare that sub 20-minute 5K to someone that had never ran, was maybe a little bit overweight, was never into their fitness, and they got into running 2 years ago, and they started perhaps at a 30+ minute 5K and finally got down to a 5-minute 5K. That says, 5-minute, a 20-minute 5K. That says way more about their values, their commitment, their drive, their passion, etc., than my 18-minute, whatever it was, 5K I did within 2 months, because I was lucky enough to have had that had a really good base level of fitness pretty much my whole life.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why it's always so important. Like, you don't know someone's history. You don't know how they were raised. You don't know, I think it's on a podcast that I saw with Thierry Henry. It's like his dad was like every single being of his growing up, and everything about his childhood was all based around football. Yeah. About, you are going to be a professional footballer. And listening to a podcast, I know that he had a lot of resentment for that, and he felt, a little bit like he'd missed out a lot. So we all obviously see this Thierry Henry. It's like, oh my God, he's like one of the greatest players of all time, arguably. Sure, a lot of Arsenal fans would probably say he is, but you don't know what he's had to go through, the suffering that he had to endure, the amount of training and hours that he put into that in order to be able to get there. So it's really important, and everybody, to use a very, very common phrase, is comparison is the thief of joy. So it's always you versus you, and this is something that we've worked on in so much detail all throughout the year with my client community, because we all have, and again, it took months. So if you're not quite there yet, it's going to take time and probably a little bit of effort. But now we all celebrate, whether someone's just run 3 kilometers non-stop for the first time, or someone's run an ultra marathon, we all cheer the same, and we all cheer as loudly, because that ultra marathon runner, they might have been training for years and years, and it's part of their background and their DNA, and they've been doing it for ages. Whereas this person, they've been sedentary for years, and it hurt so much when they were getting into running, but now they've finally achieved that. And that is equally as important as the ultra. And that's why it's always so important to compare yourself to where you were before.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that. And again, like, it's all those underlying messages that they are proving to themselves, and at no point has Dave turned around and said they did it. Oh, we celebrate because they did it in this time. They just did it.
Yeah.
Got round, right? And that's my other thing, is so many times people go into events and races and they think that they have to hit the time, rather than thinking about, well, if you go into that race and your values were to be driven, to be passionate, and to be committed, and you did that consistently throughout the race, so you continued driving, you continued having that passion, having that fire, you continued staying committed as much as you could, and it was just really wet, it was really windy, actually the course was a bit hillier than what you expected, and you didn't hit that time, and then another day you went out and you were perhaps not as committed, not as driven, because you had a tailwind for half of the race, and then it wasn't wet at all, it was completely flat course, in fact it was slightly downhill, but you get the PB on that race. Well, which one shows more about your character? Which one shows more about who you are as an actual person, and which one should you really be prouder of when we put it in that perspective? I can guarantee you 99.9% of people, because of conversation I have with clients, will say the first one.
Yeah, and I guess it's a little bit difficult sometimes, because we can all have our off days and we can all have days where we best perform. But if we were to judge everyone by their worst days, everybody would be in a lot worse spot than they probably currently are. And my girlfriend's mum actually works or volunteers in a prison, and the prison officer, head of the prison, whatever you call her, she actually says something which is really insightful, is if everybody was judged by the worst 2 minutes of their lives, a lot more people would be in prison. And it's kind of like, you don't need to define yourself by your worst performance or whatever it is, because there's so much more that goes in behind that.
Yeah, brilliant. I really love that. Really powerful.
Okay, so I guess we've spoken a lot about comparison and the ego, and kind of how, or withdrawing yourself from, just basing everything around that time. And the next thing I wanted to touch on is why do we see this paradox of the more that you want to perform, and the more that where everything is based on this one race, performance, match, whatever it is, why do we sometimes see that actually has a reverse effect on our performance on the day? Yeah,
it's the classic. The more you want to win, the less you win. And it's simply because the more weight you put on a goal and an outcome, the heavier and more intense the pressure gets. And this does so many things, but the very, very first thing it starts doing is it means that it narrows your focus, so you're inside that one bubble, and it means that your brain starts giving you messages such as have to, must, I can't. And these are what we call psychological swear words. So psychological swear words, they narrow your vision, they increase the pressure, and they make you less adaptable. So it means that you're already, you're feeding yourself this information that is very pressurizing, makes it hard to think logically, to think rationally. It means that the chimp is going to be heightened, because if you're saying I must, I have to, does that race feel like a challenge or a threat?
Want to become a stronger, better and faster runner? You don't need another cookie cutter program, you need a coach. Cooper is a coach in your pocket, and they provide real structure, real expertise and real accountability. And because you're a Move Well, Live Well listener, you'll get an extended 2-week free trial when you sign up and use the code MOVEWELL on the app. Cooper, not a plan, a coach. Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely, yeah, even just the way that you're saying it there, it's like, oh God,
yeah, I
already feel like a little bit more tense. And as I say, if everything, your values, your worth is tied to a certain event, then that's when you can make mistakes. Obviously, it's going to cause a lot more stress. I mean, just to give a very quick example, it's like when I play tennis, when I'm thinking so much about each individual shot, when I'm like, I have to win this game, I have to win this point, it's like that's when I'm hitting it out, I'm hitting it into the net, and everything just becomes less natural and much more difficult. Whereas if I'm just playing naturally, my wrist is loose, I'm playing nicely, that's when I can play some of my best tennis. And then if ever I'm under the cosh, like sometimes, again, it can have a positive impact, which I'm sure, and again, like we're not saying never feel totally relaxed and you can actually use your fight and flight in your favor, but it can also go the other way and against you. If everything is relying on that one thing, that's when you're too tense, it's not flowing naturally, you can't play your normal game, and that's when you're going to keep hitting it out.
Yeah, bang on. So, when we're in that threat state, you think about when you're in a threat state, you're very tense, you're uptight, your heart rate is all over the place, your breathing isn't regulated. Well, that makes it really hard to then perform, because suddenly you're in this complete survival mode rather than being, I hate to do it again, but running, right? You want to be loose, you want to be flowing, you want to have clear breathing, you want to, have a steady heart rate.
If you ever see Kipchoge running, it literally, he's doing like 250 pace or something like that. And it looks like he's just like fluid, like water.
Yeah.
And he's not tense. He's not clenching his jaw. He's not tight on the shoulders. Everything is loose. It's natural. Obviously, he's performing at the world stage.
Yes.
But even then, he's remaining calm and he's doing the thing that he loves.
Exactly. But when you're in a threat state, you're up tense. Your shoulders are up high. Your biceps are tense. So what happens? Well, your traps are going to start aching. Your back's going to start hurting. You're probably going to start even getting headaches. Your breathing's all over the place. Your cadence is all over the place. Your actual running form is awful. So that means you're having to work harder just to get these steps. Well, very quickly we can now see why you're no longer going to hit your best ever marathon time, because you've wanted it too much. And also it then releases cortisol because you're stressed, and cortisol is more likely to cause you to have cramp. So there's all these things happening that the more you want it, the less you're actually going to win. But not only are you not going to win in terms of you're probably not going to get your best time, well, on top of that, you're also not even going to have enjoyed that race. The amount of people that turn around to me and say, oh, yeah, I got my sub 3, but it was the worst race of my life. And I'm like, that's great. And they turn around and they're like, yeah, didn't even notice the 10, 15 people that were cheering me on because I was just in such a pain cave. And it's like, well, which one do you want? Do you want the race you look back on and you loved it, you had so much fun and you could celebrate and you got to see your mum and dad and you got to give them a hug, or the one where it was like, actually, I didn't take anything in, couldn't tell you anything about, oh yeah, there's apparently a really cool marching band, didn't see it at all, didn't see the free water that was being handed out, and didn't see my mate on the course, like I was just completely struggling, my head was down, I can only see 5 feet in front of me.
I mean, that was definitely for London for me, and that was just such a less enjoyable experience. And by the way, we're never saying that you can't go for goals and aim for a time and achieve that, because there is a lot of value in that and being able to prove to yourself that you can train for something and achieve something. But what do you say to people when they are, and what do you get your clients to do when they're in this state where everything is riding on it? They feel so tense. You can already tell on the build up to race week or whatever. It's like they're going to go into that. They're not going to be flowy. They're not going to be natural. What can someone do to enter a state of that?
How much time have we got?
Probably not enough, knowing us.
Honestly. So the first thing is zooming out, seeing the bigger picture, seeing that there's a lot more to them. Yes, they still want it. Of course you still want it. Guys, I'm going to have goals in the new year that I want to hit when it comes to my running. But what I will not do, and touch wood, I can hold myself to that, is I won't let it consume me. I won't let it come over me, because I'm going to understand and have a clear message and a healthy message behind why I'm doing it. So again, getting to look back and really reflect on why they first got into that sport in the first place is step one. And then rebuilding that belief system, right? So retraining them to not think about likes, retraining them to not think about time-based, training sessions, getting to think about effort-based, getting to think about values, and getting to sit in that space a bit more. The next thing we have is, as we said in other episodes, is cognitive diffusion. So taking a step back and starting to learn to watch the thoughts, not react to thoughts, because I can guarantee you that some of those I have to, I must, I can't, I shouldn't will start showing up. So we need to take a step back. We need to start viewing those thoughts and actually thinking, well, is that for helpful or unhelpful? Is it going to start releasing cortisol? Is it going to make me feel tight? And actually, do I have to? I can guarantee anything to do with sport. No, you don't have to. All right? Because it's not life or death. It might feel like it, but it isn't. So you don't have to. And just changing that relationship a little bit more. So taking that step back, the next thing we want to then start doing is a little bit around acceptance. So feeling the emotion, letting the emotion be there, but not having to wrestle with it. Actually, we do the opposite. We just welcome it, let it sit there, make space. Often we breathe like around it. And
that goes back to the chimp thing. It's like, instead of being like, I am stressed, it's like, I'm having a thought.
I'm having this feeling. This feeling is sitting around my chest. It feels like a ball, but actually I can breathe around it and it can just be there, and I don't have to now wrestle with it. I don't have to try and fight it away. I don't have to try and fix it. It can just be. It can just exist. I can appreciate why my chimp is providing me with that feeling. The next thing is we need to get ourselves back into the present moment. The present moment is when we have power, not in the past, dwelling on previous mistakes or what happened last time, not in the future of what could happen or what you don't want to happen or hoping you don't embarrass yourself, etc. The present is where you have the power. So then we use mindfulness activities, and it's recently I saw a post that reminded me of this. Mindfulness is the most effective psychological tool out there that boosts and improves performance because it holds us back in the present. So what can I do? Well, I can focus on things like my rhythm, focus on my breathing, focus on my senses, things
like
that
the five senses.
Exactly,
things.
like
really
the five senses. Because what it does is it turns around to our brain, and rather than saying don't think about this, it says rather than think about this, focus on this, and it doesn't give you the capacity to dwell on anything else. Then what we have after that is I call it your wins. That stands for what's important now. So right here in the present moment, what are 3 or 4 controllables you can direct your attention onto? They're going to help you snap back into the present and also help you in the situation you're in right now. So is it cadence? Is it your breathing? Is it your running form? Is it staying loose? Is it if you're on, let's say, a netball court, for example, is it, where are the defenders? Where's the ball? What do I need to communicate to my teammates? 3 things really quickly that you can start focusing on that are going to stop you from being worried and stressed about, I can't believe I made that mistake, or I don't want to make this mistake and embarrass myself. So these are things that very quickly we can start implementing. I say quickly, we can't do it just like that. It does take a little while. We have to talk through what's going on, etc. But these are some things that I would look to start implementing.
No, I think that's great. And that's obviously fantastic real life examples there of how you can reduce tension on match day or game day or wherever it is, and go forward from there. And as I said, the 5 senses thing is something that I absolutely love. And again, that what's important now, I think also a really, really great thing to be mindful of. And I guess what some people do is they're thinking into the future, like at the end of the race, it's like, oh, well, if I don't get this time, this is what's going to happen. But those tools are really helpful for getting you back in the moment and be like, okay, so this is what I can focus on. Yeah. It's a great insight there. Yeah. Okay. So moving on back to, I guess, the initial topic of the podcast is, okay, so then how do we as well escape this performance bubble where everything's relying on time and stuff like that? What do you personally do when you feel like you're getting caught up a bit to just ground yourself?
Mm-hmm. The first thing is, because very often we'll find ourselves in these, movement communities, which are amazing. My first thing is just voicing how I'm feeling. So actually just sharing it, a problem shared is a problem halved. Mm-hmm. So just speaking, you probably find someone will turn around and be like, oh my God, I've had that before. I had this. They might give you some tips, might give you some ideas, but additionally they might turn around and say it doesn't matter. And just hearing that from someone in the community turning around saying, actually, I don't really care what you run. Suddenly that's a massive weight off your shoulders, because suddenly you're realizing, oh, actually they're not going to view me any differently. They're not going to think I'm an embarrassment. They're not going to have all these negative connotations that in these storylines that we build up in our heads actually don't exist. The other thing is reconnect with that joy of movement again. And the way in which I like to do that is just go on some slow, easy runs with some friends, have some conversations, have some chats, just take a deload week, right? And just take a step back and realize that you can still go out and move, have all these positive hormones that you're wanting, that we're chasing, without having to focus on that time-based goal, without just focus on this outcome, and just be in the present moment, enjoying the fact that you're out, you're running, and you're socializing.
Yeah, I think the easy run for me, and I did a reel about this, is like when those runs where you're going for a PB, that feels like hell. And again, they have their time and place in your training. If you want to measure how you are performing, absolutely they can be used, but definitely don't tie your worth to it, and definitely don't make it as the majority of your training. One thing that I love to do is I've got like a sports quarter zip, which has one of those thumb holes, and I'll put that over my watch. I'll start my watch and I won't look at my watch for the whole run. And honestly, when I'm just going and I just run for the feel of it, to enjoy it, when I'm not worried about pace or how it's going to look, I have the most enjoyable runs that I ever have. So I guess if you were to just do it for the sake of doing it and just for the enjoyment, then that's a huge thing that you can do. But again, maybe you don't need to upload every run to Strava, or you can turn it to private as you do. So yeah, I guess all of these things, and again, doing stuff which does genuinely bring you joy, because for me, it's like, I do enjoy running. It has its time and place, but I'm much more enjoying sport right now. So I'm going to do more of that, and that's less pressure to go out and perform and win.
Yeah, I love that. And if there's one message from today, I don't want people thinking we're saying don't set time goals or don't set outcome goals. Absolutely do. I will. I'm sure Dave at some point in the future will, and maybe not for running, but in some form of exercise. That's fine. Just don't tie your whole worth to this goal. And then more importantly, don't ask someone else after a run what time they got. Just ask them how much they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And what, how they felt first.
I was like, even last night, as an example, was playing volleyball and we lost the game 2-1, very narrow game. But I messaged in the group chat after, I was like, genuinely, I think we're all winners here, because I can't stop smiling, because we had one of the best games that I've ever played. And the rallies were in, the team spirit was on point. Everyone was dapping each other after every point won. And I was like, even though I lost, like, I just had an amazing time. And that has been such a huge realization. As someone who's extremely competitive, I would usually go away from that thinking, oh, I'm really gutted we didn't win. But I was like, I had such a great time playing. And that's the main thing. And often we can lose sight of that. So I guess this is your reminder to come back to that.
100%. Yeah. And I always say to especially the elite athletes that are competing in worlds, that are competing in like majors, competing in nationals, internationals, or representing their country, I always say, look, the harder and tougher the challenge, the better the outcome, positive or negative. No one wants to turn around and say that they were in that game or match that was easy, that everyone forgot about. Everyone remembers the 3-2s, the 2-2s. Everyone remembers that sprint finish to the line. They're the ones that really matter. And once we start looking at sport and appreciating sport through that lens again, we then stop thinking about, oh, but I have to win. You start thinking about, actually, yeah, I want the challenge, and embracing that challenge side of things.
100%. And I think, we really need to come back to those values in terms of movement. And because if you move well, you're going to live well. And that's all about connection, enjoyment, passion, proving yourself that you can do the thing that you said that you were going to do, and just overall health, right? And I think it's always important to then just to kind of ask yourself periodically all throughout the years, what are you currently chasing and why? And it doesn't have to be my goal. For me, I'm not chasing any of my goals. I've not got any big runs or anything, but what I'm chasing right now is just to play sports with my mates and to have the best time possible.
Love it. Really nice message. Now, just before we let you guys go and get on with your day, whatever it is, we've got really exciting news and we teased it earlier, but it's that on January the 10th, Dave and I are going to double down on this episode and this message, and we're going to take to District Gym in Battersea for a live podcast recording, but also a full-on event.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely amazing. So we are going to obviously have some amazing guests on. We've already got a few confirmed and a couple more in the works as well, which is going to be really, really exciting. So not only will you hear mine and Tony's opinion on it, but you'll also get some more expert opinions about this topic, and it will also give you guys to ask any questions on the topic as well. We're going to do a fun run. There's going to be loads of giveaways and extra stuff for you to get stuck into. So honestly, it's going to be an absolutely fantastic event. Tony, are you doing Dry Jan starting next year?
I am indeed, yeah. Like to kickstart the year. I did it earlier this year, and I'm going to do it again because it felt so good. So yeah, Dry Jan is on the way, and I think we're going to have a couple of companies down there that will help people if they are already on the second weekend of January struggling to commit to that Dry Jan goal.
Yeah, a few non-alcoholics, which will be great to get stuck into, but also, bit of a social as well, but not just purely based around alcohol, around movement, about learning and connection. So genuinely, if you want to start 2026 off in the best way possible. Leave that event feeling inspired, feeling educated, and just feeling overall good about what's going to come up to the year. I think it's going to be a fantastic event all around. And as I said, we're both not going to be drinking, but it's going to be really inspiring to start the best way.
Yeah, definitely. Saturday, January 10th, only place to be. Now, the final part, the questions.
Always got to finish with the questions, and I think it's especially important for this one. First question: have you bought your ticket to the event? Yeah, come on, guys, what are you doing?
Yeah. Second, less important question, but still important. If no one can see your times, your pace, or your progress online, would you train any differently than you do right now?
I bet the answer to that question is yes. For a lot of people, they probably wouldn't be punishing themselves as much. They wouldn't be, thinking that they need to run faster or harder or whatever it is. And again, like, there's both sides to it. Sometimes as well, you can use that to your advantage. You know, if you are accountable to somebody else or to a community, it can be good. But again, it's all a very, very fine balance, and not to push yourself too far. And again, don't feel like you have to get into running or do high rocks to impress strangers that you don't even really know or care about.
Love it. I don't think I have anything else to add on to that. A really good one. Do you want to do the next?
There you go. And are you chasing a goal that genuinely matters to you, or are you chasing the identity you think you are supposed to have? And as an online coach, it's very difficult sometimes, because I guess and as a personal trainer as well, like, your body is technically your business card. A lot of people look up to that. So, and I felt the pressure before to be training 5 times a week in the gym and try and get as big as possible. But now, after a lot of internal work, I can just be like, okay, so train throughout the week to make me feel good, but I don't feel like I have to, really, compromise on other aspects of my life to impress people that are never really going to buy for me. And that's fine.
Yeah, I love it. It's definitely a question I've been asking myself as I gear up for the new year and booking in a couple. Obviously, for me, it's been running at the moment. It's been the heart of my exercise life. I'm thinking, okay, what goals am I going to set? Do I need to set them? Is it something that I want to do? I think the answer I've come down to is yes. And we'll have to see next year what I end up putting in place. Final question. When was the last time you felt proud of yourself before checking the number that made you feel worse?
I think that, again, comes down to, just taking that pressure off yourself and just doing stuff because you enjoy it. And, I think it's an important piece to recognize when you have done that in the past and be like, okay, well, and if it does make you feel worse, then you can also kind of use this as a start point to think, I'm going to stop doing that.
Yeah, 100%. And guys, if you've noticed that it's something you're doing and you're not sure how to get out of it, and maybe some of what we spoke about today resonated with you, just reach out to us. We're always happy to have a conversation, always happy to chat. Even Mr. Popular over here, Dave, he always manages to reply to me online, so I'm sure he'll also pick up your message when he can. Yeah. Quote of the day?
Quote of the day. Got a banger for you guys to finish off season 1. And it is, your future is shaped far more by the choices that you repeat rather than the moments you regret. And again, I think this is one of those, is we all have moments that we're probably not particularly proud of, but those do not define us. It's what we continue to do and what we repeat in doing that is really going to define who we are and what kind of person we have become.
Yeah, I love that. It makes me think of the quote, and it's because I always used to get really annoyed when people would say this, but people would say everything happens for a reason, and I disagree. I think everything happens for a reason due to the reason that you give it. And I think that relates to that quote in terms of, like, actually it's what you make of that situation, that thing that you could have viewed as a failure. Well, what's the lesson you could have learned from that? Don't view yourself again in that lowest moment. It's the growth that came off the back of it and everything you learn and everything you have done since then.
Boom. Mic drop to finish season 1. Tony, wrap it up for us.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode, and to the listeners that have tuned in for the whole season. We thank you so much. It's been really nice to see all the feedback, and yeah, it's just amazing to know that we've actually done, even if nothing comes off the back of it, at least we've done one season, and just the messages of, genuine thanks, and that people have learned stuff from us it's really great to hear, and it's the reason why we started it. Thanks so much. End of season 1. We look forward to seeing you all in person on January the 10th.
It's going to be a banger, guys. Make sure you're there, and make sure you tune in 2026.
Boom.